Hey, what's going on? Just leave it running. Welcome to another edition of What's Inside Shane's Shed. We have a whole new box of goodies to go through today. Last episode, we went through one box filled mostly with game cartridges. Hopefully we'll have something a little more interesting for you this time around. So many boxes to choose from. What's it going to be? Could be this one, but it's not. I think we're going to bust into the cool stuff this time. It's amazing how much crap there is in here, right? Okay. You guys are going to love this episode. This is where I get all the cool, weird stuff from my past. Well, and then some other stuff. First up, a couple years ago, Burger King, I think it was it Burger King or McDonald's? McDonald's teamed up with Sonic and Sega to produce these cool little one-button LED games, or two-button LED games. They are actual working LED games that came inside of Happy Meals. I think there was about 6 to 8 of them. They all have 2 little push buttons, really crappy little games, but they're all branded with like Super Monkey Ball, Sonic the Hedgehog, Shadow Grinder, Sonic Speedway. You get the idea. Tons of cool little stuff. These are little marketing junket things. I love to collect these. You'll see more of these as we go on. Something not so old, but still worth noting. For those of you from the old school days, this looks like an Atari 2600 joystick, and it is. This is what's known as a TV game, a marketing thing put together by Jacks of America. What they basically did is they took a sort of a all-in-one generic video game chip. They put them inside these controllers that look like the original controllers, right? The original 2600 controller. And it plays between 5 and 10 different classic games. You plug it right into your TV, you put batteries in the back, you can carry a little 2600 around with you. Unfortunately, as most people already know, these are not accurate reproductions of the original games, but they're close. For a lot of people who just want to relive the crappy game of Pac-Man on the 2600, you can do it with this guy. Mostly kept it around for just this sort of an event. The Sega Dreamcast mouse. When's the last time you saw one of these? This was pretty much designed specifically to play Quake 3 Arena on the Dreamcast. I've never even opened this little sucker, but this is another one of those things that costs $5 at GameStop. You may not see one again. Love the Dreamcast. Another one of those little Sega games. Alright, I'm going to give you guys a couple of moments to take this in. I purposely have my hand covering the logo. I want you guys to figure out what this is. Yeah? Anybody? Anyone? I'll give you another clue. Maybe. Some of these things are pretty old. I was going to give you another clue. Oh, here we go. Yeah, this thing is so old. Yeah. My goodness. Nah. Well, maybe I was going to give you a clue. It'd only be funny if I could actually take this thing apart. Seen better days. I'll give you another clue. It's got a belt clip on it. You clip it to your belt. It's got an Atari logo on it. There's your next clue. Can't believe this thing won't open though. It's got a little plug on it. Nobody? This is the Atari Lynx battery pack. As you know, the Atari Lynx drove through batteries like mad. This was their way of compensating for that. You could put 6 D batteries in this thing, clip it to your belt, and you now have another 10 hours or so of Atari Lynx battery life. 6 D batteries. That weighs like more than I do. We'll get back to that one. Another Sonic game. This is one of those weird things I got free somewhere. This is called a Dragon Boy, obviously trying to capitalize on the whole Game Boy line. This is one of those 101 sort of games that come on a little LED display. It's got a Tetris game and a Blockout game. I got this free for registering for something. I can't remember what, but I've never seen one since, and I probably will never see one again. My friends, a huge piece of Shane R. Monroe history. This is the Digital Derby. The Digital Derby is a racing game. Look at this, a battery cover. Huh? If you saw the other episode, that's really rare to get one of these with a battery cover. This is a driving game that you steer with a little steering wheel. It controls a car. I don't know how well you can see this on the video. It's got a little lap counter, which runs, and a gear system, neutral, first, second, third, and a start and reset button. This is a very unique thing. This is made by Tommy, Digital Derby. The cars that you are driving against are on film. There's a reel of film, 2 lanes of film, and on each film is a car drawn on it. The film travels at different speeds, and your job is to drive around the cars using these different gears to control more or less the speed of the reels that are running the film. This is a very, very cool game, and I remember specifically, I lived in Idaho. I must have been about 10 years old when this thing came out. Let me see. 1978, so I was 9 when this came out. This was the absolute coolest toy ever when it came out. And I remember there was no way I could ever afford it on my own. My parents were very poor. My Grandma Irma, who may someday get to see one of these, who knows, she got this for me. This was not the original one, of course. My original one was lost in my youth. But this is a pretty decent one. It's chewed up a little bit, but this is still very cool. It holds a lot of great memories to me and probably anybody else who ever owned one. Tommy made a lot of games based on this technology, including Blip, which is something that people are more familiar with. Lots of people are going to remember this guy. The Parker Brothers Merlin, also in 1978. 78, 79, the late 70s were a heyday for handheld electronic games. And the Merlin looked much like a futuristic telephone. I had to get a new one. I trashed my other one. This one, as you can see, is in very good shape. It has light-up LED displays. It plays 6 different games. Tic-Tac-Toe, Music Machine, Echo, Blackjack 13, Magic Square, and Mindbender. Most of the games are takeoffs of other games. I think it uses like 6 AA batteries. Huge. It does look like a little futuristic phone. They have made a remake of this thing. It's about half this size. It talks in some scary old guy's voice. Very disturbing. This is the original. If you're going to be a collector, you don't want to go to Target and get one of the $12 remakes. You want to try to get one of the original Merlins. They also made a bunch of other different Merlins. There was a Master Merlin and some other different ones, but this was the original. And I promised a good story for some of this stuff, so you're going to get one. This was all I wanted for Christmas, I believe, in 1979. And again, we were too poor to afford something like this. So Grandma sent over a wrapped gift, strangely the size of this box. Now, there's nothing worse than being a kid and having presents under the tree and not being completely sure that it's what you think it is. Now, as every other boy my age, I would go every day to the Christmas tree when I got up, and I'd squeeze my presents and shake them. But you can't really tell what was in here. But it looked like a Merlin box. You know these things as a kid. One night when my parents were asleep, I snuck out of my room and I tore a little tiny piece of the paper. In fact, it was right here. I remember specifically. It's amazing what you remember. I tore a little piece of the paper so that I could see this little glowing end. And I knew it was a Merlin. I put it back really careful, and I went back to my bed giggling and laughing that I was going to get a Merlin. A couple of days later, the Merlin box felt different. I could squeeze through it. And it's like, you can't squeeze through a Merlin box, folks. There's something in there. But for some reason, all of a sudden, I could squeeze through it. Now, I couldn't ask any questions without making myself look guilty. So I had to wait for Christmas morning before I could find out what was wrong with my Merlin box. Well, strangely enough, a new present from my dad appeared under the tree that I didn't know about that was in a big box. I opened my box on Christmas morning, and it was a Merlin box, but it wasn't a Merlin inside anymore. It was a pair of pajamas. My parents had figured out that I had snuck a look at my present, took the Merlin out, and put a nice pair of pajamas in there, which completely crushed me and forced me to be on a psychiatry couch for many years to follow. As it turned out, they took the Merlin and put it in my dad's Christmas box, for which he lorded over me and made fun of me and told me how much he had wanted one of these when he was a kid, which of course was impossible, rat bastard. But anyway, I eventually did get my Merlin, but I had to pay a stiff price. While we're telling stories, I might as well show you another little item that has a story behind it. Wildfire pinball. Now, this is the French-Canadian version, which is why you see a lot of French on the box. Unfortunately, it was such a good deal, I had to get it. Wildfire was an LED-based pinball game, and I'll take it out for you. This was one of those things that I also wanted nothing more as a kid, but to get this, the Wildfire pinball. These had little stickers. The little stickers over it were in French, so you could actually take them off and actually get yourself a real Wildfire. Take this sticker back off here. Wildfire was great. Actually has a battery cover. It's in good condition. Now look at that. I even have batteries in this one. So you'd launch the ball, you'd shoot the ball out, and you actually had flippers. You had the little flipper light ups at the bottom. You can't see this at all. But you shoot the ball out, and it's actually got pinball action. It has ball locks, and you can even tilt. You can even tilt the machine back and forth. It doesn't have a motion sensor, but you did it by controlling this. This is very cool for you pinball people who are into like old school pinballs and things like that. This is a very, very cool thing if you can get your hands on one. Now, I promised you a story behind this one. I wanted Wildfire more than anything. As a kid, you know, I wanted everything more than anything. And as a very poor family growing up, we couldn't afford a lot at Christmas time. See, my dad worked as a chef, and he got a big bonus for the new year. So Christmas didn't really usually happen for us until after the new year when he got his big paycheck and he got his Christmas bonus. So we would go into town. This was at Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, for some of my listeners who might be in that area. At the time, they used to have like these big, huge after Christmas sales. Well, all of the vendors would get together. They'd go to a huge building, like a big warehouse. They would set up tables. It was very clever. I don't know why they don't do it that way, the same way these days. It was like a huge flea market, only everything was new, but it was after Christmas surplus. Well, we thought that'd be a good place to get Wildfire, and we were right, they had one. And I begged and I begged. It was really expensive. It was like 50 bucks. And I begged and I begged, and they kept saying, no, it's too expensive, no, it's too expensive. Well, I broke off and went and looked at some other stuff, and I found my parents in line with this tucked under their arms. And I was so excited, and I said, is that for me? Is that for me? And of course, my dad, having a sense of humor, said that it was for him, that he had always wanted a Wildfire pinball, and that he couldn't wait to get home and play it. Well, as you can tell, it's the same motif from the Merlin, but at least he had a sense of humor about it. The Merlin manual, Sega Genesis Nomad manual, which whoever I sold my Genesis to, if you want this, I'll mail it to you. I forgot I even had it. Here's another Lynx manual. Shouldn't be in here. The ColecoVision controller. I kept one around. I got rid of my original ColecoVision, but I did keep one of the controllers. Strange enough, it looks like a 2600 controller. 2 buttons, each one do independent things. Keypad. This is a very unique system. Well, Intellivision did it too. There were little plastic overlays that you could stick in the side, and it would overlay the keypad. So one of them might say shoot missile, one of them might say smart bomb. So instead of having to remember, oh crap, 5 is the missile and 6 is the smart bomb, you can put a little piece of plastic in here and it would show you what each number did. This is the joystick, probably the worst design next to the Intellivision. Very uncomfortable to work with. This is how you played this game. Not very comfortable at all, to be honest with you. But the ColecoVision still goes down as being one of the greatest consoles of all time. See, I knew there were more of these little Sega game things in here. Ah! The Atari Lynx, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to introduce you to possibly the greatest handheld of all time. After now, of course, the Nintendo DS has just knocked that down. This is the original. Okay, you've seen the Nintendo DS Lite. You've seen the PlayStation Portable. You know what portable gaming looks like now. This, my friends, is what portable gaming used to look like. Not exactly portable. This is not something that you're going to stick in your pocket. It's as wide as my head. But this was... now now we have a real treat. The Atari Lynx, possibly one of the greatest handheld systems of our day, or my day I should say. The Atari Lynx came out in about 86 games, and I've got almost all of them. Now, you know what portable gaming used to be like. Well, maybe you don't. You know what portable gaming is like today. The Nintendo DS Lite, the PlayStation Portable. I'd like to introduce you to the earlier handheld gaming. Are you ready? This was what handheld gaming was like back in the old days. It's as big as my head. This is the Atari Lynx. This is the very first version of the Atari Lynx. This is what you'll see if you happen to be a big fan of Chucky, you know, Child's Play Chucky, little killer doll. In number 3, the little black kid, what was his name? I can't remember. Anyway, the little black kid had one of these, and you can hear him actually playing a game. And this looks like half the size of the kid. Here's the cartridge port. You almost see like smoke coming out of it. It can be played either right-handed, or you can push a button and flip it over and play left-handed. Still, I think one of the only handheld games that lets you play either-handed. As you can see, it has a nice big display, full color backlit. You can play this in the dark. Very cool. It's actually very comfortable. I mean, it feels more like you're, you know, getting ready to pump up a bike tire, but it's still very cool. This is the very first incarnation. It had not only a headphone jack, it had a Comlinks cable. You could actually hook this up and play multiplayer with it. It also had a brightness control to help maybe take down some of the battery life. This is the very first Atari Lynx. I had to keep it. Very cool. This is my special edition Lynx bag. This has all of my new Lynx stuff in it. When I say new Lynx, they made a second one. This has good stuff in it. We're going to go through this. Here's the second generation of Atari Lynx. A lot smaller, still about as big as my head. Different angle, nice big huge display screen. I don't think this thing has any batteries in it. Oh, it does. Maybe I can actually show you something. This has Robotron in it. I don't think you can get zoomed in there, can you? I don't know if you can see that screen or not. You can hear it maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, the batteries are almost dead. In fact, I think they just died. They're dead. In any event, this was the second generation Lynx. A little fatter, but definitely shorter and smaller. This is the cartridge that goes into that guy. This is the Robotron cartridge. Now, it's really funny. I don't know if you can zoom in and you can see a small amount of discoloration on the back of this cartridge, a little square right here. That's all the bigger the actual chip is. The whole rest of this is for labeling and for the connectors and everything else. So they were making them still pretty small back then, but this is maybe slightly smaller than a Nintendo DS cartridge, but you can get an idea. Big old giant card, lock and load, baby. This also had 6 batteries. The battery life was a little bit better on this guy, but it was still pretty bad. In here, of course, I have a couple of goodies. I have an AC adapter for the car and for the house. Because trust me, folks, if you're going to go on a car ride with the Lynx, it better be a short car ride unless you have a battery adapter. Now, this is really cool. I have cartridges. Lots and lots of cartridges. A lot of people don't realize just how cool the Lynx was. And I want to talk about what some of these games are that came out for it. Casino. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. You bet you didn't know they made a video game out of that, huh? Kicks, one of the great games of all time. Basketball. You saw a lot of these manuals and stuff. California Games. Unique Style did not have the lip on it. Slime World. I think you could play 8 players at once with that game. Dirty Larry Renegade Cop. Battle Wheels, as you saw. This also lets you link up and play up to 6 players. Joust. This is a great version of Joust, folks. If you're looking for a handheld version. Batman Returns, another licensed game. Malibu Beach Volleyball. Warbirds. Connor Tennis. Super Squeak. Power Factor. Shido. Rampart. Steel Talons. Kung Food. Xenophobe, which is another great version of the arcade game. Anything that was made by Atari in the arcade got a really nice port on the Lynx. Cyberball, one of the big all-time favorites. Zolar Mercenary, one of my all-time favorites. Hard Driving, excellent version of an excellent game. Gordo 106, Chips Challenge, very great game. Road Blasters with speech, one of the first handhelds that ever had speech. Scrapyard Dog, Toki, APB, Rampage. Starting to recognize some of these titles. The Atari Lynx got most of the best arcade ports. Pinball Jam, excellent pinball game for the portable. Gates of Zendikon. Paperboy, yes, Paperboy came out on a handheld that early in the life. Stun Runner, Turbo Sub, Crystal Mines 2, Shanghai, excellent version of the game. Zybots, what are some of the other ones in here? Viking Child, Robo Squash, Switchblade 2, Ms. Pac-Man, outstanding version of Ms. Pac-Man. Pit Fighter, Clax, great puzzle game. Rygar, Slime World, Dracula, The Undead, Hydra, Shadow of the Beast. It's a little dusty in this shed. Anyway, that's pretty much my Lynx collection. And as you can see, I've got a lot of them. What else do we have in here? We talked about the ColecoVision controller. Now it's time... Oh, hey, what's this? Another Sega game. You didn't think they made that many of them. Who says complicated controllers started with the modern gaming? This is... Remember we talked earlier in another episode about the super action sports games like Super Action Rocky and Super Action Baseball? This is the ColecoVision Super Action controller. This guy, this is a complicated piece of hardware right here. Joystick control. All the buttons that come on the original ColecoVision. A spinner controller. And get this, 4 buttons. So you had all the buttons, the joystick, the spinner, the keypad buttons. This has probably more buttons than any modern controller has now. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 buttons, a joystick, and a spinner for running. A unique controller for a very, very amazing system. I think about 5 or 6 games came out that used this guy. Not very many. The controllers were expensive, but it's one of those things that if you're big into ColecoVision, you have to have them. Ms. Pac-Man Lynx control thing. Here's something cool. You don't see too many of these anymore. See if you can get a close-up on this guy. These are Topps scratch games. This is Donkey Kong Jr. And the goal of these were to start at one point and scratch a path across these scratchers, like a lottery ticket. You would scratch the paths and try to get from A to B without running into a bad guy or getting dead. Dragon's Lair had a set of these cards that you would chain them together like rooms. This room and then the next room, you'd lay them all flat and you try to scratch a path through the entire game across these cards. Very cool. You just don't see anything quite like this anymore. Power adapter for a 2600. And this is another one of those devices. This is the Atari Flashback 2. It looks like an Atari 2600. Has 2600 controllers, and it has built-in games that you can see: Asteroids, Pitfall, Centipede, Yar's Revenge, etc., etc., Combat, Adventure, one of the other great games. This has 40 games built into it, and these are apparently, and I haven't had an opportunity to look at this, these are apparently actually, unlike the Jax controller that we looked at on another episode, these are actually accurate to their Atari counterparts. Word on the street is, you can cut a hole in this thing, wire up an actual cartridge slot, and turn this into an actual 2600. Could be cool. Well, gang, that empties out this box inside of Shane's Shed. I hope you had a good time. Be sure to look for other episodes in the What's Inside Shane's Shed, say that 10 times fast, series, and look for other great things. We got boxes more of stuff to go through. So definitely tune in on the next episode. We'll see you there, right here on What's Inside Shane's Shed. Hello and welcome to yet another episode of What's Inside Shane's Shed. I'm Shane R. Monroe, host of Retro Gaming Radio, co-host of Dual Screen Radio, and we are going to look inside another box inside of Shane's shed. Last couple of episodes we've seen the Atari Lynx, we've seen Atari 2600 cartridges, we've seen odd handheld games from the 1978. We've got a whole new box to go through this episode. Who knows what we'll find in here? I got a pretty good idea. But first up, now while not everything is going to be gaming related on this show, some of this stuff is just retro related. This is something I'm very proud that I still have. This is a banner for the Commodore Amiga saying, "Only Amiga makes it possible." This was the Amiga's slogan. This is when the Amiga came out. Absolutely blew everything else away at the time that it came out. Real version of Marble Madness and realistic looking graphics, at least for the time frame. This is very cool. I'm pleased that I managed to hold on to this through all these years. You'll have to put up with some non-gaming stuff for a little while. As you know, I was in the military, and this is my company book. You know, it has, it's sort of like a yearbook. You know, this is it's kind of interesting for people who haven't been in the military. When you get out of boot camp, you get these books. And basically, it's like a generic book about your training center, your training command. These are all generic pictures, but they give you an insert that you put in that has your own company stuff in it. But the idea of this, of course, is just like any other book. You have people that you went to training with that you have them sign it. I don't know if there's any more signatures in this one. In any event, a little 7 years of my life given to Uncle Sam. I don't know why I have another one in here. Oh, this actually has my insert. This actually has my recruit command plus pictures of my command. And I'll find you a picture of my mug. You can actually see me when I was skinny. There we go. Oh my God, look at me. I'm right there. Can you believe that? That's actually me. That's crazy talk, right? I look like I'm 10. Young boy, stud. Unfortunately, a lot thinner than I am now. Hey, now this is great. This is a good story. I promise you some more stories. This guy's name is Edgar Rape. Yes, his last name is Rape. Tell me something. If you had the last name of Rape, would you not change your name? I would change my name. This guy got discharged from the military because he was in charge of a female group of recruits. He went in after hours one day because he heard a noise. Turned out that there was a whole bunch of female recruits doing unusual, naughty things to each other inside the bathroom of their barracks. Now, he might have been okay had he not sat and watched for 20 minutes before he stopped him and got him in trouble. He went bye-bye. But with a name like Rape, you weren't much for this world anyway. Yeah, that's enough about my Navy days. I'm a martial artist, as many of you know. This is one of my original Tang Sudo manuals. I'm a martial artist. You wouldn't know it by how fat I am, but I am. My original manuals. One of my original green belts. Actually, probably a couple of my original green belts. Old school. Back to video gaming. Forbidden Forest by the great Paul Norman. Forbidden Forest was one of the few games. This actually got Editor's Choice for one of the best 50 games of all time. You never believe this, folks. The game came on cassette. Can you believe that computer stuff used to actually load off cassette? It's true. One of the greatest games of all time, folks. Paul Norman, the man, the myth, the legend. Forbidden Forest, one of my favorite games of all time. This is cool. You had a big thing for Terminator when I was growing up, as a lot of kids did. I collected Terminator 2 trading cards. I think I got all but about 5 or 6 of them. Yeah, pretty cool, right? What's really cool about these trading cards, just to give you a little side story, because I know people like the stories, there are a lot, when the movie came out, these cards were actually based on the original draft of the script, which I also happen to have right here, crazy enough. The original script had a whole bunch of scenes shot for it that they ended up cutting out of the movie. So if you got the cards, they had scenes in here that were not in the movie. You can see these scenes now thanks to the extra space on DVDs. But the part where Kyle comes back and talks to Sarah about how she needs to go protect their son, not found in the original movie, found on the director's cut, but you can also find them inside these collector cards. Now what's this? My Navy pocket watch. I told you I wasn't going to talk about the Navy anymore, but you know, what the heck. I did my time. I guess I should be proud, right? Actors Award I won. 1986 Drama Festival Best Actor. Go figure, right? I don't know why I keep this stuff. It means nothing. Here's the original cut of the Art of Dragonlance book. If you're a big Dragonlance fan, this has some of the best artwork ever from Dragonlance. This is out in a new release. This is the actual original book. Very cool. Has some of my favorite drawings in here. Where's anyway. Big Trouble in Little China script. Remember that movie? It's a reproduction, of course, but it's a full script to Big Trouble in Little China. Yeah, that's in here. I don't know why I have some of this stuff. Let me see if I can figure out why. These are clips from my local newspaper. Oh, this is why. I've got a picture of my ass in here. Tips for would-be web builders. And as you can see, I've got a photo here. Actually, I think I was even heavier there than I am now, which is pretty bad. It's a bad picture, too. Look at that hair. Those big old glasses from the 70s. Got a couple of copies of that. Oh, I guess I got several copies of that. Well, there you go. Found from the archives, probably sent by my good friend John Barta and his wife Linda. Some of my oldest friends, my dearest friends. For you Big Trouble in Little China fans, I've got all sorts of stuff. Big James Hong fan. James Hong, he played the voice on Mulan. He was in Big Trouble in Little China as the bad guy. There's Kim Cattrall when she was still hot. That's Kim Cattrall. What's this? Yeah, some signed pictures of James Hong. James Hong. You know him. He's been in everything. He was in Golden Child. He did tons of TV. Hey, you remember him probably from Blade Runner. I only do eyes. I just do eyes. That's that guy. Very great actor. He's been doing movies for like 50 years. Man, I got a ton of Hong stuff. Here's another shot of Hong. I did his website ages ago. That's why I have all this stuff. Hey, remember those Sega games I was looking at earlier? I found another one. I know I look like the standard comic book geek guy, but I do happen to have pretty much an entire first run of Speed Racer comic books. A couple of Amiga magazines in here, things that I kept. I'm actually in some of these. Not sure which ones though. I don't want to spend the time to dig through them all. But I got tons of these. Amiga User, Amazing Amiga. Info, very short run magazine. Amazing Computing. Most of the stuff's Amiga related. Amiga Worlds. Classic Gaming Expo 2004. If you haven't been to the Classic Gaming Expo, this is where you need to be, folks. I have a booth there. I interview the alumni. Very cool stuff. Classic Gaming Expo 2001. Here's the operator's manual for Dragon's Lair 2, the video game, finished by Sullivan Bluth. I believe that's Don Bluth's brother. Not much to see in here. Basically tells you how to set the dip switches and whatnot, but still kind of cool. Remember I talked about Paul Norman earlier in Forbidden Forest? Well, he started a new company called Digitarius, and he created a new game based sort of like on Aztec Challenge. It has like half-naked chicks in it, so you probably want to get in on this. Very cool guy, Paul Norman. Nice violent culture, lots of blood, gore. I got this straight from Paul himself. I believe it's Digitarius.com if you want to take a look at that. Paul Norman's a great guy. Okay, you've all seen DVDs. You've seen CDs. Some of you maybe even remember our good friend, the 3.5-inch floppy disk. Some of you may even remember the 5.25-inch floppy disk. But how old are you? How long have you been around? How ancient are you if you remember these? My God, these things are huge. These even predate me. These are like 10-inch floppy disks that hold, my watch holds more memory than one of these things. Look at this. I found these, good story, I found these at a flea market. There was a whole box of flexi disks. And I thought, who the hell has even seen one of these in like 30 years? So I bought the box for $1. And I wrote them up as Christmas cards, Happy Holidays 2003. And I sent them to all my ancient friends who would actually remember stuff like this. I had to keep one, of course, for myself, because you may never see one of these again. These things are huge. Love that. All right. Dragon's Lair scratch paper, which obviously I'm not going to use it for scratch paper. It's pretty cool. It's a pad I got from our friends at Digital Leisure. Don Bluth put out a series of magazines. Don Bluth, of course, responsible for Dragon's Lair. Also, some of the greatest animated movies of our day. Secret of NIMH, American Tail, Land Before Time. And these are his magazines. These are the magazine series he put together. This features The Secret of NIMH, Land Before Time, Fievel Goes West, maybe. I don't remember exactly that one. Space Ace, of course. American Tail. I'll do it in there. American Tail again. And All Dogs Go to Heaven. Beautiful magazines. These are incredible. They have lots of his artwork, stories. These are pretty hard to get a hold of. If you can still get them, you know, and you're interested in Don Bluth and stuff, they show you how to actually draw stuff, draw characters. Very cool stuff. It's very neat that he put these out. Unfortunately, they were very expensive to make, and he didn't get a lot of sales, I don't think, off them. So here's another one that features Titan AE. They talk a lot about, let's see. See, very cool, right? These are really, really neat. This is the first issue. Thanks to Don and Company for hooking me up with those. Here's some more Amiga Worlds. I'm trying to see if there's anything that's really specific that I kept these for. Interactive video. Some of these are pretty cool covers, I think. And of course, more Dragon's Lair crap. This is the Little Big Books series, I think, featuring Dragon's Lair. Has puzzles, kids stuff. This book used to belong to Thomas something, can't read it. But thanks, Thomas, for the book. I think I got it at one of your yard sales. It'd be funny if he was listening and knew that this book was his. He didn't even do the crossword puzzle. Shame on him. That's really cool, right? Back to video gaming, folks. I still have a copy of Archon. Arguably one of the greatest 8-bit titles of all time. Created by the Freefall associates, Ann Westfall, John Freeman, and Paul Ritchie III. This is from Electronic Arts. This is back when Electronic Arts actually kicked major ass. For those of you who are not Electronic Arts fans, you've got to understand that over the course of a decade, these guys were absolutely some of the best software developers of all time. Very innovative, very cool. They used this record type structure where you actually had fold outs. You actually got to see who made the game. You actually got to see some cool stuff. You got notes, like liner notes, like on a record. The disc, I don't know where the disc went. Maybe it's in here. But so you had little slide outs, right? Look at this. This is an Archon quick reference card. Is this like the coolest thing ever or what? It tells you about each of the characters, what their weaknesses and strengths are. I got the instruction manual. This was like the cool, I remember this old logo. Anybody who's been around a while remembers the old, we used to think that this was an E, a C, and an A for Electronic Arts. Doesn't mean anything. It was just a sphere, a square, and a, what do you call it? Pyramid that's a, whatever, I don't know. Math was never my strong suit. But Archon, this is the Commodore 64 version. Archon's one of the greatest games of all time. I still have one. Now, when it comes to role-playing games, you are very hard-pressed to beat Legacy of the Ancients. This is the IBM version. I couldn't get a hold of the Commodore 64 version. Came in the same box. Legacy of the Ancients is one of the most brilliant adventure games of all time. There's the guys that did it. Again, they really made an effort, Electronic Arts did, to show you who did it, why they did it, what their backgrounds were. You can see, this is beautiful. Look at that. That's the Commodore 64 version of this game. It looks unbelievable, and it plays and it sounds great. I'm trying to see if there's a crappy version of the IBM screenshot. See, they didn't put the IBM PC version on the back of the cover because it looked like crap. They put the Commodore 64 version. These are actually the IBM discs. But yeah, Legacy of the Ancients holds a huge key to my heart. And get this. In the old days, they used a little something called code wheels. This was copy protection in the old days, folks. This little wheel, in order for you to get into the museum, which is the core of this game, when you went into the museum, it would actually give you a code. Something on the outer ring and something on the inner ring. You twist the wheel to line those up. Say, let's see, what's something I can pronounce here? You'd line up Eastern and Pearl, and it would ask you for ring 4. So you have to type in the ring 4 number in the middle. Is that crazy or what? That was the copy protection. And you still have to have this code wheel to play it on an emulator today. It's one of the reasons I still have it. Last up, my last remnants of 3.5-inch discs from the old school days. Probably don't see too many of these. Hey. All right, here we go. So what exactly is in this box? These are things that I felt worthy to hold over a period of time. Unfortunately, some of these don't have any labels on them. Boy, that just sucks, doesn't it? You don't label stuff? You won't look at those. My original programming language that I made and my friends made a lot of money on, Amos. Amos was a programming language, very high level. Came on a few discs. You install it on your hard drive. It was from Europress. Amos would let you make quality video games without really having to know a whole lot of programming. You didn't have to know some, but it was still very low level. Well, high level, I should say. We're almost done here. Another Amos disc, a couple of them, with my unique serial number still intact. This is the Amos AGA extension, which let you use AGA graphics in your game. Very important. Amos Pro compiler. And look at this, Great Valley Products hard drive prep disc. For those of you who had a GVP hard drive, bet you had one of these, and maybe some of those. Here's an old Amiga Workbench 1.3 copy. It's one of those things you just have a hard time finding. Another prep disc. And this has a really cool story. We're gonna leave this episode with this story. This disc has a Super Freak You Can't Touch This remix. This is way cool. The Amiga had a program called Audition 4. And Audition 4 would let you sample digital audio from a CD or a cassette or whatever, which is no big deal. Today you can do that with anything. But back then it was a little more impressive. It would also let you chop up bits of songs and sequence them. This is totally bizarre. We had a complete copy of Super Freak and a complete copy of You Can't Touch This. As you may know, both songs are based on the same rhythm. So my friend took the two songs, put them all into the Amiga, and chopped up little bits of the song. And what he did was he created a remix of these two songs by using little tiny bits of each song and looping them and jumping around between the clips. It's way, way cool. And once you're done, you can instruct the software to drop any piece of the song you didn't use. So he was able to create an entire remix song that fit on an 880K floppy disk. And I still have this disc today. It's very, very cool. Very, very cool. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of What's Inside Shane's Shed. We have more boxes to go through, more episodes to do. If you missed the last couple of episodes, you'll want to check those out. In the meantime, keep it retro. Remember that listening is good for dualscreenradio.com if you're interested in the Nintendo DS. RetroGamingRadio.com to check out my monthly radio show based on retro gaming. And tune in next time when we're going to go again through What's Inside Shane's Shed. Take care. Zoom in.